Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Soul Channel. I am so excited for today's episode. And yeah, I say that every time, but there's this thing between Allysha and I that just sparks the most amazing magic. My name is Teresa Warnstaff. This is Soul Channel. It is a place for seekers to cultivate clarity, raise consciousness, normalize spirituality, and change the world. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. I am an intuitive channel. I help business owners and entrepreneurs all over the world step into their power. And Allysha and I met, what was it, 3 years ago now? 2 years ago?
2 years,
It
I
was,
think.
yeah, 2 years ago. And I was a participant in her summit. I presented, and seriously, we got on, and it was like the energy just kept elevating and elevating and elevating. And we kept getting giddy and laughing. It was amazing. And when those things happen, you want to share. So this is my gift to you. Allysha is an author, adventurer, modern mystic, and conscious entrepreneur. So not only is she gifted in the mystical and magical, but this girl's got a brain and she knows how to put things together for business owners. She is the author of the visionary historical fiction epic, The Heretic, a yummy read, which follows a real-life ancient secret hidden through time. She's also the host of Real Life Magic Summit, where we met. And she has a background in psychology, as well as intensive training in nature-based spirituality and shamanism. Allysha is passionate about helping modern humans find our place in the natural world and reclaim the magic of our birthright. For the past 15 years, she's been helping visionaries share their gifts, working with coaches, course creators, workshop leaders, artists, authors, conscious consultants, and powerhouse professionals to build thriving conscious businesses. And that's why we're here today. We are talking about the enchanted entrepreneur, the secret behind building a magical business. Because though you have the magic ingredients, you need the practicality, the operations, the logic, the precision, the knowing that feeds the doing. Allysha, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Teresa. That was beautiful. I love what you're doing here with Soul Channel. I think the mission of this, and especially I love that keyword, normalizing spirituality.
Yeah.
Because it's just where we are on the planet right now. And that's in a way what wasn't quite possible when I stepped into the business space 15 years ago. And what now is not only becoming easy, but is natural, right? And so we don't have to separate business and spirituality anymore. As a mom of a 2-year-old, I'm not even separating my work life from my home life anymore. I'm here in my beautiful home. My toddler is taking a nap. And when we can bring all of ourselves to our lives, something magical begins to unfold. So thank you for seeing that and bringing this forward.
Oh, I appreciate you. I know the magic that you can create for people, having experienced it for myself. And I agree. Bridging that gap between, the mindset of putting ourselves in little buckets, right? This is who I am at work. This is who I am when I go home. And this is who I am for me. To be able to completely open up and express from our authentic self is a gift that is being realized.
And I think it's really important to recognize that is, what would you say? Like, it's a gift that we have now. So as a history geek, I always look at how things were before. And I think that it's a really powerful way to appreciate what's happening now, because we needed those buckets, right? Historically, you'd go into, and this is still happening for a lot of people, so I really want to acknowledge that, but you go into that cubicle and you have to be who you have to be just to survive. You get with your family and you have to show up. You know, if you're a parent, you have to show up for what your kids need. If you're a spouse, or even if you have roommates, you know, you have to show up as a respectful and kind human being. And so we all have these things that are being asked of us. And how do we meet those with authenticity? And how do we get to the next level, which is how do we meet those with our authentic magic, that spark, that sizzle, that thing that only you can bring to the world? Like how do you bring that to the cubicle? How do you bring that to the business that you dream of creating? How do you show up at the dinner table with that zest? That's you can see, you said in my bio there that I'm passionate about how do we as humans recover that magic, because magic has really been swept under the rug for a variety of reasons and in a lot of different ways, but it's inherent to who we are. We feel it in those special moments when we climb a mountaintop or have a moment in nature or connect with another person or have a great business success. We feel it in those moments. And so how do we tap into that and begin to live from it? That's my jam.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's moving from living by default, societal norms and what we're told to do, to moving in and mining what's within us, the magic that you talked about, that place that originates the sizzle, and then allowing that to self-express in an authentic way. And when my perspective is that when we do that, we can bring forth more success, abundance, joy than if we stay compartmentalized. So let's talk about how are some of the ways to bridge that gap?
Well, I think the first thing that comes up when we start to do this, and a lot of people who are probably watching this are already on this path and have experienced various places along that journey. But the very first thing we have to recognize is that it used to be deadly to do what we're talking about. You know, my book, I'll do a little plug here, but my book is called The Heretic. And heretic literally means one who is able to choose. It used to not be okay to choose.
Yeah.
And so what we're experiencing now is a world like, woo, like let's celebrate a world where we can choose. I can choose to be me and you can choose to be you. And thank goodness, because the world is so much better for you choosing to be you, Teresa. Like, yes, I'm so happy about that. And I think that all of us, I really am.
I feel the same way.
I think all of us have that, right? I think that with everyone who is out there and living in that way, had I the chance to connect with them, I would be so stoked about that too, right? Because it's not just, oh, I'm showing up and I'm not being fake. And it's not just, oh, I'm showing up and I'm doing a good job. It's, wow, I just showed up. I'm being vulnerable. I'm doing what I feel called to do. I'm saying what I feel called to say, even with, this is funny because my battery's going to die right here. And it's perfect, right? Isn't that perfect timing? Because I love to prep so that I can just look good, right? And my 2-year-old wouldn't nap. And so now I get to struggle with a computer cord on camera as I'm talking about authenticity.
It's perfect. Right? It's the perfect illustration. Yeah. Yep.
So let's get plugged in so I don't lose you. But it's that, right? It's being willing to be human and be messy. And it's really scary. And I think it's important to say how scary it is, because they used to burn us at the stake. And for those of us who have a deeper intuitive sense of the longer journey of the soul, some of us have those memories. That's a very common thing, to have memories of or experience of or fear of being burned or being killed. A lot of us who are really aware of our spiritual journey in this life have walked this path before, have opened to the great otherness before. And it before now, it was not okay. It was just not okay in most places of the world. And I also need to recognize that it's still not okay in a lot of places in the world. And it's still not okay for everyone. And so like, this is this incredible privilege. And when you allow that to hit you, when you allow yourself to realize how blessed we are, that we can choose, that we're not going to be significantly persecuted in the, your mom might think you're weird. That's real. And you might lose some friends. That's a thing, but we're not going to be burned at the stake, and we're not going to be cast out of the tribe. We might find a different tribe. But there are tribes welcoming those who are taking this journey and embarking on this path. When we can feel that blessing, when we can recognize what our ancestors went through to get us here, I think it gives so much courage. It gives so much kind of oomph to be willing to put yourself out there. Like, oh man, 3 lives ago, like this was so bad. Like now it's just kind of uncomfortable.
Yep. I agree.
So I think
I'm so glad we've left behind the persecution for individuality. And as you've acknowledged, it's still occurring in places in the world, several places. And our best contribution to eradicating persecution is by full self-expression and owning our power. Don't you think?
as well as recognizing when others are doing that.
Yeah.
And giving them space, whatever that looks like, which can also be tricky.
Yeah.
Right? We want the space to totally be ourselves, but when somebody shows up, it can be shaking, the human body experiences shifts in consciousness, in energies, in ways of being. And so we have this way of being, this normalized way of operating in the world, the culture that we're in, the patterns that we have. And when that gets disrupted, one of my amazing teachers, her favorite word is disruption. And I just love that. And so when we do poetry work with her, when we do body work with her, when we do breath work with her, it's always about, can you disrupt your habitual patterns? And as soon as you start to disrupt what's already there, there's space for new things to emerge.
Yeah. Yeah, that place of magic. And I want to acknowledge that all of the things that you talked about, the poetry, the breath work, are all tools, all gateways into what's within you. And it does require courage, because since we were toddlers and understanding and trying to fit in and create our world, it was prescribed, not blossomed in many cases.
I love that you use the word toddler, because it's such a big word in my life right now. And this is one of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now is how do I help her as a person to cultivate herself while keeping her safe here on planet Earth and she's fiery. So like it's a thing, keeping her safe is real. And I think that ultimately gets ingrained in us, that need to feel safe. And my joke, which is, warning, a little bit difficult to hear, is that like, sorry guys, you're here, you're listening to this, which means you're alive on planet Earth. And the only way out is pain and death.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And so there's a fundamental unsafety in being a human. And if we can embrace that rather than trying to hide from it and saying, well, I'm not safe anyway. So if I'm a little bit uncomfortable, well, maybe my life will get bigger.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I often tell clients, but I also tell to every child who will listen, oh, I'm afraid to do that. Oh, that's uncomfortable. Okay. And you can choose not to do that, but your life will get smaller. Every time you choose not to do something you're afraid of or something that makes you uncomfortable, your life gets smaller.
Yeah.
Now, caveat, I don't mean the things that don't feel right.
Yeah.
Because when something doesn't feel right, it's a different kind of discomfort.
Yeah.
There's a malaise that settles in that something's not right.
Yeah.
But when something really feels right, it's usually terrifying. Like my grandmother says, it is literally your greatest fears that come up when you move towards the path of your soul.
Yeah.
And I love that she taught me that young, because now if I get scared out of my mind, I'm like, oh man, I guess I'm supposed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's different types of fear. The fear that you've hit your edge and you're going to push through into new ground. The fear there's a tiger. The fear that you've made something up in your mind. But understanding who you are allows you to define what those are for you. And that's so vitally important. I love that. Thank you.
I would love to bring this around to business, Teresa, because
Let's do
business
it.
is where, like, that's the crucible. That's where we really start feeling like we need to fit in and be safe.
Yeah.
Or where we really are willing to go out on a limb. And I've spent so many years in both places, but there's actually kind of a middle way where you're understanding the territory and still putting yourself out there. My analogy is like, some years ago, I walked El Camino de Santiago. And so you're walking this pilgrim's trail and you get up every day and you're walking and you're just worn thin because you're walking so far and your body hurts. But with you, you have in your pack absolutely everything that you could need. And so there's this incredible stability at the same time as this incredible vulnerability. And I think that magical business is that it's having the tools of business, but using them in a way that's authentic and vulnerable and magical.
Right. Agree 100%. So I think in our audience, we have both. We have those people that have taken the leap and those people who want to take the leap. So let's see if we can give them both some nuggets of wisdom that will help propel them forward. What do you think?
Awesome. I love it. I'm going to kind of take a deep breath here and see what comes through. I love that you don't prep for these interviews. I mean, obviously there's some preparation involved, but there's no script, there's no questions. Yeah. I'm the same way. But I think, when I talk about a magical business or, an enchanted entrepreneur, the way that that's different from Starbucks or, your run-of-the-mill business, or even, Ed down at the hardware store who inherited his business from his father, and that's just what his family does, right? Like how is a magical business different from any other business? Yeah. A magical business, well, let's start an ordinary business. Let's start here. An ordinary business is based on supply and demand. So you look out in the world and you see something that's needed and you bring it to the people. Or alternatively, you have something and you think, hey, people might want this, and you go find the people who want it.
Yep.
A magical business is based on a soul calling. And it is something that tugs from the inside of you, usually for years, trying to get out, trying to become manifest in the physical world. It's the seed of an idea. Often we don't know if it will work. It's terrifying to think of even embarking on that journey because we're secretly afraid that no one will like it, even if we could do it.
Yeah.
And it usually brings out the entire laundry list of everything that we've been afraid of for our entire lives.
Yeah.
Fun, right? What's great about this is that this absolutely applies whether you're talking about a business or you're just talking about your spiritual path. We all have something that we're called towards. And for some of us, it's being asked to share gifts that we have, or talents that we have, or ideas that we have, or products. And for others, it might look totally different. But whatever the format, it's answering that call of something that is being asked of you by whatever's bigger than us, whoever put it there, or the divine nature of things, or just the symmetry of quantum physics and the way everything comes together. Right? We all have different names for it. And I'm really in the camp of like, words aren't big enough for what we're talking about. So let's just keep throwing words at it until we are speaking everyone's language. Right?
Yeah, for me, it's the soul's purpose. It's the reason we're here. And, I believe that there's two sides of it, our internal soul's purpose, but what's the external soul's purpose? What has your soul asked you to bring to the world? And are you brave enough to do it, right?
Yeah. And I love that you said brave again, right? Because it is that there's this leap. And the joke is, as an entrepreneur for the last, as long as I can remember, is you take that first leap and you go, I did it. And then the very next week, you're asked to leap again. Yeah. And then you're asked to leap again. And then the next year, you're asked to leap again. And so it's interesting, in my book, I say it's not a choice you make once. It's a choice you make 1,000 times over and again. Yeah. And it's just that choice to follow your path, right? Yeah. And we don't know what that is, and we don't know how it's going to turn out, and we don't know where it's going to go, but it's a willingness to lift your foot and let the path rise beneath you.
I love that. Beautiful.
And when we do that, the path really does miraculously appear. And that's something that it's always really special, but it's really cool to see in business, because when we set out to build a business, we always think we're building something different from what we end up building. Teresa, have you had that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Every single turn my business has taken is not what I would have prescribed. And I've been in consulting for over 20 years. So for me, planning and organizing was the default. And the moment that I let that go and allowed the soul the expression, miracles happened. The most amazing opportunities would drop into my laps.
And that is what I think is the hallmark of a magical business. So the biggest pitfall of magical entrepreneurs. And so whether or not you consider your business a magical business, if you are on the soul's journey and you are in business, this could definitely apply to you. And you know what? I'm just going to say, like, even if you're not in business, this same phenomenon occurs. Yeah. So when we look left and we look right, there are ways that people tell us we should do things. Right? And in business, those voices are really loud. You have to have a website, and you have to have a social presence, and you have to start a mailing list, and you need a funnel, and all of these, and you just, all of a sudden, jargon is pouring down on your head, and you go, what am I doing? Yeah. And when we look left, look right, and just kind of try to do what they're doing, a huge percentage of the time for magical business owners, it will fail.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh my gosh, learn that the hard,
Hello.
like.
This is 100% true. I have followed 3 different individuals who said that they could provide information. And the moment I stepped out of my own authority and gave it away, whoosh, things stopped. 100%.
Yeah. And it's really tempting, especially when we don't know the space. So business is like anything else, right? If you have never been to church, you don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to open a prayer book? Do I need to bring my Bible? Where does my kid go? Like, we don't know what to do. It's the same thing. One of my big, like, weird things that I'm afraid of is like going to a new dentist. I'm like, but where am I going to park? You know, it's not even the tooth thing, like a new chiropractor, whatever. Like, wow, I don't know where the waiting room is and all that. Like,
Yeah.
silly things. But when we are used to a thing, there's a culture and we know how to do it.
Yep.
Well, business has a huge culture and a huge presence, and there is so much to know. No one living could ever know everything there is to know about business. It's just not possible. It's so broad and so deep. So how do you start? Right? Like it seems like the natural way to start would be to do what this guy's doing.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to mess it up. I don't really know what I'm doing. So people say this works, so let me do that. Right. And yeah, yeah, we've all done that. And it took me years to stop doing that, to really stop doing that. And it's funny because I still have people calling me up all the time and saying, you should do this. And I stop and check in, like, oh, okay. Yeah, actually, thank you. That's a great lead, a great nudge from the universe versus like, yeah, that's not correct for me, even though that probably works for lots of people.
Yep. Yeah.
So when we set off on the spiritual journey, when we set off on the entrepreneurial journey, there's a gathering of information that happens. And we take in a lot of information, but how we sort that out has to go through the heart. It has to go through the guts and the tummy. It has to sink down into the body. It has to be a lived experience. For some of us, we have to sit with it for a while and just mull it around. We have to try it on 6 different ways and look at the ways that it might succeed or fail. Some of us know instantly, and we need to jump and act and take that momentum and run, right? Like, you might have some inkling of what your system is like. You've been living in it for probably a while if you're old enough to be listening to this. But, but for each of us, it's a little bit different. But it's really about dropping into that sacred space of who we are and finding the sweet spot. And the reason it's so important in business is that the failures can be expensive and they can be public and all different kinds of things that are amazing learning experiences. And if you have done that, or if you're going to do that in the future, don't worry about it. It's really part of the process. Teresa and I are still going. But, one of the biggest messages that I have for spiritual entrepreneurs, for conscious business folks, is trust yourself. Like, in a deep way, trust yourself. If your gut say get this coach, get that coach. I wish that I had jumped at more opportunities like that. If you're not sure if a product is going to work, that it feels good to you, do it. If it doesn't feel good, but it's a great idea and you really think it's going to work, like, just don't even touch that. Like, don't spend your time on that. Right. Because the universe somehow knows, like, they're calling this out of us. So they don't really care about these other things that you want to waste your time on. Like, you have a mission, you have this important work to do. And so, like, other people who are not on this deeper mission, they get to do some of those things. They get to have this brainy idea and just find that niche and sell it to people. Great. Like that's their place in the great pattern, right? And maybe that's you, and maybe that's a calling, but for those who have that calling, when you stray from that, it takes a lot longer.
Yeah. And it's a lesson learned. And it's a detour that you didn't have to take. It's the lesson that you didn't need to have, because if you orient back in here, like we've talked about throughout this conversation, it's where the magic is born. And I want to highlight a differentiator, because I think this is really important. And for me, you're this person. And that's why I want to say this. I have been approached by so many people to help me build my business, right? And some I said yes to, and I shouldn't have. I admitted that a little while ago. But here's the differentiator. The ones that I said yes to that said, great, what do you want? Let's build your resources. The ones that allowed me to shine, that supported me with authenticity and love and kindness and a lot of brilliance in the business world, gave me a platform to rise. And that's what I feel like you do, Allysha. You bring somebody in and you've got all these skills, tools, knowledge, and wisdom that you confer, right? And it's different. It's a different way of coaching and mentoring, which is vital. It's a gift that you give. So thank you, because that's why this conversation is so important. People need to find their person.
Mm. I just love hanging out with you, Teresa.
Right back at you.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, when you came on the Real Life Magic Summit, it was the first time that we had an in-depth conversation, and it was just so sweet and so rich. And I love the way that we speak the same language, even when we sometimes choose different words for the same thing. We just really are speaking from the same place.
Yeah.
And I really feel heard when I'm talking to you. And I love that, because, you know, we do live in a world where we can't always talk about these deeper levels of things with everyone in our lives. Or, you know, I run this magical business, and it's hilarious because my company is called Real Life Magic. Like, I am out. It is in the open that what I do is magic stuff. My book is called The Heretic, right? And a good portion of my family is very conservative.
Yeah.
And it was a scary process to get there. But what's funny is now everybody's just like, oh yeah, Allysha has a business. And it's almost like they don't know what that means to have a magical business. You know, they just don't, like, that's not a language they speak. So we don't talk about that. What I love about it is that then I find people like you, and we can really talk about what it means to have a magical business. And at the same time, for anybody out there who is afraid, like, oh, I want to start an essential oils company, but maybe people will know that I'm weird or think that I'm weird or whatever. It goes right over their heads. You know, they have a moment of going, oh, is that weird? And then they go, oh, no, she's in business. That's great.
Yeah. We'll normalize it really quickly.
Right. So for
Yeah.
anyone, so for anyone who wants to jump on that bandwagon, but is afraid of how it'll look, the optics get translated for everyone who's perceiving it. I work with a lot of more mainstream colleagues where we just get geeky about business stuff. And whenever we talk about my messaging, they're like, "Oh, whoa, that's really crazy, Allysha. Like Enchanted entrepreneur, you no, you help magical business people. Like, what's a magical business person?" I'm like, "It's okay, they know."
They do.
Right?
And that's the best part is somebody's going to be going through YouTube and they're going to run across this and go, "Oh, they're speaking my language."
Right.
And that's hello magic.
And everybody else just hears it as jargon. Magical business people. Oh, that sounds like a sales gimmick, like a pumpkin spice latte, right? Like, ooh, it's sparkly. But no, it's not. It's a secret language that we have. And in the business world, in business tactics and all of those things that can often seem a little bit scary or intimidating or even just overwhelming, right? For people who dive in and have gotten past the fear but are in it, you're doing your branding.
Yeah.
And how do you do your brand messaging? And the good news is, like, if you are in a magical business space, and some magical businesses are in mainstream spaces, but if you're in a magical business space of, some selling something esoteric or offering spiritual services, you have this wonderful opportunity to speak a language that only your target audience speaks, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, Teresa, I'd love to offer something here. One of the things that happens in business is that we get really confronted by the idea of business itself. Like, I keep tossing around this word business and business people and entrepreneur, and we don't always know what that means. And so, like, what does it mean to be in mainstream business? And what does it mean to, follow your guts? All of that. Like, that's really important. But I'd love to just dive into a couple of terms that we often hear in the business world that can be really confronting. And in particular, I'm talking about entrepreneurship. And in this day and age, a lot of that is online. And so there are lots of ways to start a business. But in general, if you're sitting around your living room and you're thinking about starting a business, you're probably looking at becoming an entrepreneur rather than, buying a franchise that already exists. You're looking at really, starting your own shop.
Right.
And you will probably have an online presence. Even if you have a brick and mortar store, you're probably going to have an online presence. And so there are some terms that come up that we think are one thing, but what they actually are is so much more magical than that. So the first one I used just a little bit earlier is branding, right? We all know brand names and that. So you think John Deere, you just got a logo, some colors, an image in your head, right? Coca-Cola, that one is epic, right? So we all know what a brand is.
Right.
But do we? What is a brand? So your brand is the energetic signature of your company. So if you think about my energetic signature here, right? Okay. So you've got my physical body. You've got my spiritual body or soul. You've got, that ethereal part of me. But when I walk out of the house or I show up at an interview, you've also got the crystal that I chose to wear, the shirt that I have on, the way that I did my hair, my makeup, the way I'm moving my hands, the words that I choose. Everything that goes into this is part of the energetic signature that you are experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Your brand is exactly that. It's the clothes, right? So there you get your colors. It's the hair and makeup. You've got your images that you choose, right? And that's kind of the surface level. And you go a little bit deeper, the words is the messaging. What are you saying to people? The body is, the presentation of how you're putting that all together. How does the images go with the words, go with, how is this coming together? And underneath that, you have the spirit, and that's the values that is driving everything. And those all have to go together, right? So if I show up acting exactly the way I'm acting right now, I'm trying to think of something like silly, but I show up like this, it's a very different experience of me, right? And it's not incongruent with my brand, but if I showed up like that, it'd be weird, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so branding, we get really intimidated. We're like, I have to choose just the right font. Well, what is just the right font? The right font is just the one that feels, really deeply feels correct for what your business is deeply. Your values are not something you're going to put on a poster in an office. They're something that informs every decision you make in your business. So we get really intimidated about brand, and we think we have to have all of these pieces, and what are our brand colors, and blah, blah, blah. Or alternatively, we go, well, I don't really need a brand.
Yeah, we ignore it, which is
right.
Yeah.
I mean, what if I did one interview and I showed up like this, and I did the next interview and I showed up in pajamas and I just had my hair like sloppily uptied, and I showed up for the next interview and I was wearing a clown hat, and I showed up for the next interview and I just like threw my feet up and was like, what else? It's confusing. People are like, I don't know what she's like.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't know. I can't rely on it. So the reason it's important to start to take back terms is because when we don't know what they are, it's hard to operate with them. Right. So I won't go too deep, but y'all are welcome to email me and ask me about some more of these, because I do have a long list. But another one that I think is really, really important to mention is marketing. Yeah. Because boy, do we have stories about marketing. Anyone out there ever said, oh, I hate sales, I hate marketing?
Every entrepreneur out there.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reality is that marketing is just how you tell people about your business.
Yeah.
So if you have a strong brand, you have a strong energetic signature, and it's authentic to you, and you know what that's like. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's fun to shout it from the rooftops. Yeah. You want to tell people, and especially, who you want to tell the most? The people who you could make a difference for. Yeah. Boy, you meet somebody on the street, or you hear about somebody's friend, and you could really help them. Wow. All of a sudden, you don't feel like you're marketing. You just really want to tell them that you could help, that you've been there, that you know about that, and that you can help light the way. Right. And so, especially for conscious entrepreneurs, this is a really tricky one. Well, I don't just want to sell stuff, but in order to stay in business, I have to make money. The story that to be an enlightened person, you shouldn't have money is gone. It is dying.
Yeah, that's old. Yeah.
It's old. Like, it's still running around in some of us. So let's acknowledge it. Okay. But it's no longer necessary, and it's not realistic, because when you're not being paid for your services, you don't have the time and the freedom and the resources to help the world by offering your services. So marketing is just telling people about it. It's the words you use, it's the pictures you use, it's all of those things, which are easy when you have a brand. Yep. And it's the places you find them, which are just the places that you find your people, right? Yep. So it doesn't take a lot to brainstorm where you might find those people. Am I going to find my biggest fans at a soccer stadium? Maybe some of them, but probably not a ton of them. Or at least it's probably not the best, densest population of my fans, but maybe a yoga studio. That might be closer. Meditation ceremony. Like, there are a lot of different places where your audience, whoever that is gathering, right? The people who desperately need what you have to share. And when we shake off all of the things that business is not and all of the jargon, and we can get down to the core of what it actually is. It's really fun.
It is, because you're creating a platform of confidence for that individual, because they can be seen and be heard for who they are and what they offer in its purest authenticity. And that's an incredibly beautiful thing, and so rare and precious. So, how can people work with you? Tell them where they can find you, what you can offer them. I mean, I know there's people out there going, okay, I'm in, I'm in. Allysha, here I am.
Yay. So the best, easiest way to find me is on my website, www.allyshalavino.com. So just like my name, I'm sure it'll be in the comments, but you can check interview with Allysha Lavino. So allyshalavino.com. And what I do is I custom create packages for people. And so everyone is in a different space in terms of where you are in your business. Maybe you have an idea, you have a gift, you feel the calling, but you haven't started yet. Maybe you're way down the path, you've started, but you can't get traction, or you've gotten traction and you want to expand. Like you could be anywhere in the process. And what I do in particular is I have the Enchanted Entrepreneur Accelerator, which I'll talk to Teresa about it, but I'm going to do a discount for her people. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So the Enchanted Entrepreneur Accelerator is a 12-week program. And what we do is we sit down and we custom build a program that can go through everything from getting clarity on your vision, building your brand, building your messaging, building email sequences, if that's where you are, building a mailing list, getting a marketing strategy down, all of these pieces that when you are just entering the space and have to do the research to learn about on your own, honestly take years. They just take years to do all of these different pieces. And so what we do is we sit down and we look uniquely at your business and at what you need, and we build a program. And then you and I work together, like hand in hand, to have a coaching session followed by you like getting inspired and busting moves and bringing things back. And we go back and forth and co-create. And I support you in creating what your business needs to take the next step. So that's kind of my big package. I do one-off coaching sessions and a variety of things. And if you don't need the full 12 weeks, I also can take out one little coaching segment, right? So for example, if you have all of the things, you have a brand, you have a whole business, but you just want to focus on email sequences, right? That's a big one. It's kind of my specialty as a writer. We can do just one little thing. I also do teaching people how to use AI to write magical emails that really fit your brand and work for your business. So that's one of the weeks, right? So there are all these different things. You can check it out on my website. In the menu, you'll find business as one of under coaching and consulting. Go to business, and you can see just all the different products and services I have there. But for folks listening to this interview, I do want to offer a special gift. There's kind of two. Am I allowed to do two, Teresa?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. So one is the summit that has Teresa on it is up on my website. And it's totally free. You can buy lifetime access if you want to, but it's totally free. There are 27 amazing speakers, and Teresa was the grand finale. I did all of the interviews, and then I sit down intuitively and figure out where they go. And it was just so powerful that I was like, oh, this is drop the mic. So that's on there. You'll see it, Magic Summit, I think, in the header. So go ahead and sign up and you can get that. It's a 5-day summit, I believe, lots of speakers. Okay. So that's the first thing. Do at least check out that interview because it's really fun. But my special gift today, I would like to be a magical business assessment.
Awesome.
So what I'd like to offer is a 45-minute where we just go through. I have this insane master checklist and I just ask you a bunch of questions and we like ramble through like, okay, where are you in all of the different aspects of your business? And so that's something that then you can take away, whether you work with me afterwards, or you work with a different coach, or you're just on your own. You know, I'm the queen of free resources. I'm like, oh, I'll get my assessment. I'll figure out exactly what I need and then go work on it. So, yeah, so I do want to offer that for everyone. And I'm going to figure out, I'll probably give you a special link for that, Teresa, or we'll figure out how to make that super easy.
Okay, perfect. Well, I can tell you as a serial entrepreneur myself, one of the greatest investments I've made in my business is finding somebody like Allysha who can help me move through and create my business. It is the bare minimum investment I believe individuals should not only make in their business, but in themselves. And to have somebody who's done the work, created the assessment, given you the opportunity to see your business through the lens of somebody else is beyond valuable. It is essential um, for all of us. And as Allysha said, it's not only for those who are starting out, for those who are halfway down the road or who have been doing this for a while, because I believe it's essential to analyze what's working and what's not so that you give yourself the opportunity to evolve. And that includes your business because your business is you, right? All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I I'm really excited about these assessments and the difference that they make for people. It's a tool that I wish I had had when I was first starting out, you know, and whether it's me or someone else, one last thought to leave you with, like, don't be afraid to find a
Yeah.
coach. Find the coach that works for you.
Yep.
Find an accountability partner. Find someone who you can just work with and share with and be with inside of your business, because being an entrepreneur can be lonely. It's especially like a solopreneur, you know, it's you need colleagues, and you need colleagues who have been there, who know the ropes and who can really help launch you forward. And the amount of money that you invest in a coach, you will easily spend in years of overhead with a dragging business. Like it is just, it's the shortcut to where you want to be. So I wish I had done that sooner. I really just say, like, I wish that I had known that from the beginning. I prided myself on keeping my business in the black. You know, I was always like, oh, I'm gonna just, and I stayed there. I stayed level, making like $17 a month for years
Yeah.
before I finally went, okay, how do we launch? How do we take this to the next step? How do we shoot for the moon? So
Yeah. Allysha, I love spending time with you. Thank you for sharing with everyone who gets the opportunity to watch this later. This has been such a blessing.
thank you so much for having me, Teresa.
All right, you guys, I love you. Have a great day.